Welcome, everyone, to another episode of TNS Short, where we discuss a single topic in a quick manner. And the topic we're going to be discussing today is just going to be the general balance of smites, specifically looking at the balance changes that have happened after Super Regionals going into the World Championship. That's obviously happening next week, and how they are going to affect the Pro Meta. So, Sabo, when you think about the changes that have happened in the last 3 weeks, which one do you sort of notice first of all, I guess?
Well, the one I noticed the most, and I think is going to affect the meta the most, or in this case the least, is the Devourer Gauntlet being increased by 100 gold. I don't think that's enough to deter or even slow down some of these pro hunters that like to build it. And we know the Devourer's Gauntlet, the Executioner combination, those are the two core items for ADCs right now, and for hunters in general. So mid laners as well too right now. And they've focused all their effort on increasing some of these costs that make hunters, on these items that make hunters so powered, while also hitting some of the guardian and tankier items just in the stats to try to get away from that elevate meta that was set at Super Regionals, the 3 tanks, double hunters. I don't think they've done enough, especially with Devourer's Gauntlets. They increased the gold. They've done a few changes with Executioner, but the Devourer's Gauntlet is what stands out the most to me, because look at back in the spring when Shifter Shield and Executioner and what was the other one?
Cool.
Fatalis.
Oh, spring, yeah, Fatalis.
In spring, yeah, in Fatalis, when they were the core builds for hunters, that's when we started seeing the double hunter, triple tank meta a little bit from Elevate and from the other European team, Valence. Yeah, we saw that meta from them a little bit, but as soon when the items there got nerfed, we started seeing mid laners again, and then as we get into the fall split, they buff Devourer's Gauntlet a lot. They don't touch Executioner. They don't increase the cost for Devourer's Gauntlets at all. They increase the power. They increase the power that the stacks give you, while also decreasing the number of stacks you need. And the two items, the Devourer's Gauntlet and Executioner, paired together is kind of why we saw the double hunters come back. And I think they didn't do enough to the Devourer's Gauntlets. They tried to give you a second option with the Soul Eater buff, but Soul Eater in its past iterations were heavily favored at the past 2 worlds. Like, we would always, we could almost guarantee that Soul Eater was going to be built at the last 2 worlds. With this current iteration, it's powerful now, but is it more powerful than Devourer's Gauntlet, even with the 100 gold increase? That's why I see that Hi-Rez is trying to get away from this tankier meta, but it's not going to work because the item that caused the meta to come back into fruition wasn't actually nerfed. And so this whole fall meta, this whole double hunter, just let your hunters get soul farm and let them carry you through the late game. That all started with the Devourer's Gauntlet changes, and they didn't. 100 gold increase is not enough, and so I'm expecting the triple tank meta to still work out at Worlds.
See, I think there are other things that are in play here as well. I don't think it's just Devos, right? Because you have to think about it. At the time when Devos was buffed, you also saw a massive nerf to Icaval, which was previously the item that was being picked up by hunters in its spot, right? They used to just go boots into Icaval into Executioner, skipping the lifesteal because that power curve was so efficient. Devos being buffed obviously changed how efficient Devos was in its stead, but I think there's another big thing that was in effect there as well, that changed hunters to be a more prevalent choice, and that was them getting essentially free farm on their side of the map, on the duo side of the map, because a lot of focus was shifted from the duo side to the solo side with the nerfs to the Gold Fury, gold, and XP that it provides you with.
Yeah, and we also heard talk of maybe putting that mage in the dual lane and taking the mage out of the mid lane and just letting them get solo farm over there where the ADCs usually would get the solo farm. But that never happened. They instead put they put the hunter in mid lane paired up with another hunter in the ADC role. Like it's the double hunter. The double hunter is what caused the meta at Super Regionals to be so one-sided in Elevate's favor. And in the teams that could run that same meta.
Yeah.
I.e. Obey beating Elevate in game 4 and 5 because they got Death Panther off the hunters and on Scylla and was the other one? Was it?
I think it might have been Scylla twice.
Yeah, I knew it was Scylla in game 4. I can't think if he played. He might have played Scylla in game 5 as well. But
yeah, not
we
sure
saw.
either.
I mean, you brought up the massive changes to Iqbal as well as at the same time buffing the Devourer's Gauntlet. Well, they didn't like I said, they didn't change the Devourer's Gauntlets other than just adding 100 gold onto it. So that's not really it's not enough to say it's not enough to justify not putting that extra hunter in the mid lane. I mean,
no, what I was saying, right? What I was saying is when Devos was initially buffed between the summer and fall split, right? They nerfed Icaval at the same time, and it changed the way people build in the sense that they used to go boots into Icaval into Executioner. Now they went boots into Devos into Executioner because Icaval is now a terrible item, and Devos is now a great item.
Yeah, and going into Worlds, Hi-Rez is clearly trying to get out of that double hunter meta and get mages back in the mid lane. But a 100 gold cost increase is not enough to do that. I mean, they look at the 3 Guardians, which is normally what is run in the triple tank meta. Still very high scaling early, and some of these item changes that they did to the tanks, most notably the Void Stone changes. Late game, that's not going to be incredibly hard to make up for. They're still going to be tanky as crap. I mean, it all stems to me from just the changes. Well, like you said, the changes to Iqval, while at the same time, the changes to the Devourer's Gauntlet making it so powerful, and the lack thereof changes to Executioner as well. That's why we saw this triple tank this triple tank double hunter meta at Super Regionals, and why it was so effective. So the Devourer's Gauntlets just made it really easy to put that second hunter in there. I mean, they're already they have more sustain than the mages in the mid lane early. They're all focused around hitting their auto attacks late game. They shred through towers. They did change Titan's Bane a little bit. They just took 3% off the top, 3% penetration off the top at Titan's Bane, while also cutting the tier 2 of Titan's Bane down 7% from 22% penetration to 15% penetration.
Yeah, that's a more significant change on the tier 2.
Yeah, but like the tier 3 is not very notable. That 3%, that's kind of like, maybe that's maybe an extra hit, or maybe an extra lucky crit at the perfect time. But that's not, you're still going to shred through these towers. Like, it's not. Yeah. I don't think they did enough with Devourer's Gauntlets to put these mages back into the mid lane.
Yeah, Yeah, I think they've done other buffs to mages directly, right? That help them just as a class in general, and I think those can do something in that regard. But overall, the nerfs that the hunters have received probably won't be enough to really force them out of the role in the mid lane. What I think is almost the more important part, though, is forcing the guardians out of the two roles that you normally shouldn't be seeing them in, right? As solo and jungle. And we saw them move towards warrior jungles for pretty much the entire year, or at least somewhere in the summer split, and especially then going into the fall split. Why did it change to that we're now playing guardians? And what can be done to make the guardians less prevalent and bring assassins and warriors a bit more back into the jungle, especially assassins, and especially assassins that aren't building tanky.
Well, we've discussed this before. It's all about pressure right now. Can you create pressure in the mid and solo lane, and how do you do that the best? That's do damage to the opponent and force them not to be able to fight you in the jungle. And who has the highest scaling out of all three of the options in the jungle? That's the Guardian. They have a lot of damage early that they can push out and create pressure with. I mean, assassins and warriors just don't have that kind of that that early power that they want. They're all based on their scaling. And
Yeah, and
so,
like assassins even more so than warriors, right? That's also the original reason why we saw warriors really coming into the jungle, was because they were better at the early fighting, and I think specifically at level 1 than the assassins usually were. And now that guardians are here, I think yeah, that's part of the role, that they have more pressure than your average assassin. Go on.
I mean, it's clear to me that with some of the nerfs, and there's not a lot of nerfs to the Guardian items. Like I said, the Void Stone being one of the major ones. The crown, I can't think of it. But the
Jade
crown
Emperor's Crown.
was that the Jade Emperor's crown, just taking 10% physical protections off of it. It's not, or not 10%, but 10 physical protections off of it is not going to be enough. That I think.
Yeah.
Void Stone change is going to be more. Is going to hit them harder.
Like, I don't get the Jade Emperor's Crown change in the first place, because it's a support item. Support is the role that we want Guardians in. Why are we nerfing a role, an item for the class that we want Guardians in, for Guardians?
A lot of the protection reduction on these items just don't make any sense. I mean, it's what Gladiator Shield, what did it start out with? Like 45 protections in the summer.
I'm not
and
sure.
then they scaled it down to 35 protections, and now it's just 30. Like, okay, like you didn't Warriors towards the end of the back end of the fall split. Warriors weren't, they were only being played in the solo lane, and the physical protection is not why you bought the Gladiator Shield. It was for the passive. So that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think they're just hesitant to nerf the passive, because that could kill the item, right? And the main reason the passive's imbalanced is because just some gods make much better use of it than others, right? Most notably Cuchulainn and Sun Wukong. But yeah, I think it's weird how a lot of the changes they've made, where they've taken them, right? And I'm also not sure if it's going to be enough, right? I wouldn't just flat out say that it isn't going to be enough, because they've done a lot of changes. They've nerfed both the strong items for hunters, right? Executioner and Devos and Titan's Bane. So they've basically hit all three big hunter items.
Again, the Devo's Gauntlet, that change.
Yeah, they're small nerfs, but they're still nerfs, right?
That's not really a nerf. 100 gold's not going to deter me from buying it. That just means I'm not picking up wards on that back. I'm just finishing off the Devour's Gauntlet and going back to lane.
And then you get killed by a jungler.
All right, one death early on an item you don't lose stacks on. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, but then their assassin jungler suddenly gets fed and kills your entire team all the time.
And then 25, 30 minutes rolls around, and guess who's on farm because the hunter is killing him over and over again. The jungler's on farm for the hunter.
Yeah.
Where one kill for the jungler turns into 7 kills for the hunter because the jungler keeps trying to fuck with the hunter after 20 minutes. Pardon my language.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I don't know if it's going to be enough. That's the most I can say, honestly. And I think I like the direction they're going in with the changes that they've made, right? Buffing and nerfing hunters, and at the same time buffing mages and nerfing the tanky classes, and at the same time buffing the more squishy ones.
I want to say this real quick. These mage changes, especially the ones to Raw and Isis, these were needed changes. You know, these weren't something that had to be done to change the meta. These were needed changes. The characters were not in a good spot, and so buffing, buffing Divine Light on Raw, and then was it Wing Gust and Spirit Bomb, or Spirit Ball? Don't know, but it's Isis.
Ball.
On Isis. These were changes that were needed, especially for those two gods. So I don't like the changes to the mages; those were needed. Is it going to be enough to knock off the hunters in the mid lane? I don't think so. I mean, look at their items that got changed as well. It was just for the most part, taking the gold off of tier 2, so it's cheaper to buy the tier 2, but putting that same amount of gold on the end of tier 3 to where it all ends up costing the same in the end. Like that's stupid.
Yeah.
You're buying the items early, but the whole thing about mages and mages builds, where their items are extremely expensive. So, nerfing the tier, or buffing the tier 2 to cost less gold while also nerfing the tier 3 to cost even more gold. Like what's the point of that? I mean, the hunter items are still, in general, less gold, and so they're going to be online earlier.
Well, the point is to make the power curve a bit better, or even to just allow them to more easily start with a tier 2 as their only starting item, right? In addition to the potions that they'll get, and I can understand why they're doing that. If it's going to be enough is an entirely different question, of course.
But that also brings in the question: is the game? Can you end the game in 20 minutes, or is it going to go 30, 35 minutes? Because if it ends in 20 minutes, yeah, these changes are great. If it goes to 35 minutes, everything stays the same, and hunters are still way more effective.
Yeah. except for some mages, right? Some mages are still good late game, like really good late game. But most of them generally aren't.
But you said power. You specifically said power curve. Yeah, that early game power curve being changed to favor the mages has got a time limit on it. It's only really great until we reach a certain time in the game. Once it goes past that time, hunters are just going to be more effective in general because their items cost less. They're based around their auto attacks, and they do more damage to towers because auto attacks do more damage. Well, the auto attacks are the only thing that do damage to towers. So there you go.
Yeah, but you have to see that the mages that are late game, right? A lot of the times, the reason they aren't picked is because their power curve or their progression curve throughout the match is just going to give your opponent too much of an advantage in the early to mid game for you to be reasonably able to actually run them. Changing items so that the power curve in the early mid game becomes better for mages alleviates that problem, right? Because it helps those late game mages.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
And they have the chance to replace hunters in the meta overall, right? And once you
Yes.
replace hunters, I think you can start bringing back in the warriors and bringing back in the assassins to keep the damage types even, right? Because I think that's also a big reason why we see more guardians, because the damage types need to be sort of balanced. At least usually, right? We've seen games where teams have completely disregarded damage types and it has worked out. But usually you need to have a sort of balance between physical and magical damage. And having your two big damage dealers be physical damage sort of forces you into picking the other three gods, picking three magical gods that are going to be your front line.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, like, you kind of do want the balance unless you have, for some dumb reason, you're running four physical and one magical, which then you look. I'm gonna say this, and then that's all I'm gonna say on it. But towers and minions and camps all do physical damage. So when you have four physical gods on your team and that's all your damage, your
Yeah.
opponent's going to build physical protections, and that's not only going to help them against you, but that's going to help them against the entire map as well. So you're really hurting yourself when you pick four physicals. You want to,
Yeah.
if you're going to pick four of something, pick four magicals, because then the camps and stuff still do more damage to them.
Yeah. But then you have to pick Chronos, because otherwise you will have no tower damage.
Chronos or Soul.
Oh yeah, Sol exists, right?
Does Freya still do that? I don't know if Freya still does magic.
Now,
I don't play.
Freya's big issue is most of her damage on the basic attacks actually comes from her 1 and her 2, which do not apply to towers.
Yeah. Still have that frostbound effect though.
Oh, let's not go into her. Like, she's not going to be relevant at Worlds. At least I don't think so.
I don't know. Emilito's there.
Oh, that would make Chronos relevant. Funball's not there, so...
Yeah. I don't. I could see a little bit more variety coming out, and not the player, haha, but a little bit more god variety, and just maybe we see assassins. God knows Fenrir's going to be picked since he got buffed and adapting's in the tournament. That's already going to happen, but the changes to Camazot's getting more power on his Screech, I think is what it's called. Don't play Camazot's either. You're the jungler, you know.
It is, yeah, it's called Screech.
Getting more power on that, and then who else was it that got changed? I know Thor didn't get changed. What is it? There's one more. Was it Daji?
Let me look. Hunbat's got a small buff. Dashi got a buff a bit earlier, I think. Let me go through the patch notes real quick. Wheelix got a buff. An increase in range on Gravity Surge. And...
Yes, Hunbat's has got a Sacred Monkey mana reduction.
Yeah.
So cost is mana reduction.
It's a small buff, yeah. Outside of that, I don't think anyone was buffed too substantially. And I think Dashi was buffed in 421. So I don't have the patch notes for that patch open right now. Let me see if I can find them. But yeah, she got massive buffs, of course.
But my point, I do think we'll see some assassins and warriors in the jungle, but I think as the tournament goes on, we're going to see the more tankier options come up, because more or less of the international teams are going to make it later in the tournament, and we'll see more SPL level teams. And adapting in mass, they're going to want to run the assassins and the warriors. Captain Twig is going to want to run whatever he wants to run. Cherio's going to want to run Guardian. So it's going to, the later the tournament goes at Worlds or HRX or SWC or whatever abbreviation they have for it this week, the longer it goes, I think the more we see the return of the extra tank in the jungler, whether it's Guardian or Warrior.
Yeah, like even if it's not just gonna be because the bad teams get dropped out one after another, right? I think it's also just gonna be because the tournament meta is gonna establish itself. Similarly to what we really saw at Super Regionals, right? We sort of saw Elevate being the first to bring out the triple tank double hunter comp, but then everyone else adopted it as well and was running it as well. And I think whatever turns out to be the best meta at Worlds is going to be adopted by the teams. And if there's no consensus on it in the beginning, one is going to be formed. I think it's always going to be hard to have a meta where you have a lot of different options, because they all have to be equally as good as one another, right? And that is a very difficult thing to do. I can't think of too many metas within Smite where you've realistically had multiple options in terms of itemization or multiple options in terms of what you were going to pick. And when you think about it, you really go back to the earlier seasons where teams overall just were not that good, or were nowhere near as good as they are now, right? And so just by nature of teams not being on as close on as even as of a level, you had more of a chance to play with something that wasn't optimal and still succeed.
I mean, you said that, and I immediately thought of Thanatos. Like, why did we not see Thanatos at Super Regionals? I know we saw a lot of Nemesis, but Thanatos.
I think we saw him once.
Yeah, but Thanatos, we saw him last year a lot last year at Worlds, and yeah. I think he works well going into this triple tank meta because of the execution. And him and Nemesis, they can both be built similar ways where, you can build these tanky items, or you can build around the auto attacks and stuff like that.
Yeah, Thanatos has two good stats, CDR and protections.
Yeah, and the having that execution up to, doesn't matter how much protections or health you have, as long as you drop below a certain percentage threshold, he can execute you. And even you can't pick Khepri into that because he can execute through Khepri. And so that's, now that I think about it, and it's the first time I thought about it, I don't know why we didn't see more Thanatos at Super Regionals. And I think if teams actually catch on to that and we go back to that tankier meta towards the end of the Worlds, we could start seeing Thanatos a little bit more. If, like I said, if these teams actually think about it. I mean, they may not, think about Thanatos, but, they're professional players. They know the in and out of the games, and maybe it just slipped their minds at Super Regionals. Maybe he was in a bad spot, but like, that execution is always going to be effective. So why not have it? You can obviously play it in any role. I mean, he works good in the support role as well. I mean, just go play Thanatos support, and it works very well.
Yeah, I think he's one of what makes him a good choice still is that he is one of the assassin junglers that can be built tanky, and that is usually built tanky, right? Just like Ratatoskr is. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him come out. I'm not sure if he's going to be extremely prevalent, but I could see it happening. I think one of the reasons why we didn't see him much was because Stone of Gaia was very prevalent in the meta at around Super Regionals, right? And whenever Stone of Gaia is there, it becomes more difficult to get a tank to below the execute threshold, just because
Yeah.
he's going to regenerate between poke fights, and it's going to be hard to poke him down for 60% of his HP in a single poke fight.
While you're here, I forgot about Stone of Gaia. This is why you're here. But they did. The Stone of Gaia got the Devourer's Gauntlet nerf. It's just 100 extra gold.
Yeah.
I don't. That's not going to deter anybody. I mean, it's still. You're not picking it up in your first 3 items. It's more of a luxury item. You pick 4th or 5th. If you're a warrior or a guardian, you're not going to buy this early, but you're still going to want to buy it. And the later the game goes, as you start getting gold furies and portal demons, and the gold keeps just rolling in and in, the item is just going to be something you back for, buy once, buy it all at once, and just go back to what you're doing. It's not like it's going to be, I have to wait another 300 extra gold. Oh no, it's just 100 gold. I'll just let me get this back camp real quick, and I'll pack.
Well, I would be getting the back camp anyway. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Before the 100 gold, where you don't necessarily need that back camp to be able to afford the item. Now you have to get that back camp to be able to afford the item. But that's like what, 7 extra seconds to clear a buff camp or to clear a back camp.
Yeah, it's nothing world changing, and probably nothing world's meta changing.
I don't think Stone. I really don't like the Devourer's Gauntlet or the Stone of Gaia nerf because it's just 100 gold. It's not going to deter anything. It's not going to stop these items from being built or causing these items to get on any later than they are. It's just like, okay, you don't get wards on this back, or you clear this back camp, or whatever it is you do for an extra 100 gold. It's not going to be like you said, it's not going to be world changing.
Yeah. I think if something changes, it's going to be because all the changes add up to make both classes, guardians and hunters and warriors. So really all 3 classes, not just both. Because they're all going to add up to make those classes worse, and that's what will cause a change, right? All the changes combined, 2 Devos, 2 Executioner, 2 Titansbane, when it comes to hunters, for example. But yeah, I wouldn't bet on big changes coming. Then again, it is Worlds, and last year at Worlds we saw a completely different meta from what we saw earlier in the season, right? In the fall split of that season. So we could always see massive changes being made because someone just discovers something that had been in the game for quite some time and had been underused.
Yeah. These pro players, they have a month and a half between super regionals and worlds. They're playing everything and looking at everything and mixing and matching items and gods, and they're going to find something that's completely broken that that nobody knows about. And it's going to be a thing, and they're going to use it at worlds, and then everybody's going to start using it in casuals and in ranked, and here we go, and high res is going to nerf it into the ground, and they're going to find something else for next year.
Oh, playing Smite casuals, Conquest casuals during the last World Championship was just terrible. Right, back then it was only bearable because I was playing with a lot of people in a party. We pretty much always had 5-man parties, so it was bearable. But outside of that, it was just terrible. Because you were just getting invaded every single game. And that's just because that's what the world meta was.
People watch Worlds and think they're professionals, and they start imitating the professionals. It's like you said, everybody was invading all the time, but there was also everybody had to have Thanatos every damn game. You could not. There was a week there between a week or maybe 2 weeks. I can't remember. But there was a week between Worlds and then the patch after Worlds where Thanatos was in every casual game you saw.
Yeah. But yeah, that's just how the meta shapes itself, I guess. Stuff just instantly translating, or broken stuff translating from pro play into casual play is never going to be a lot of fun to go up against. But yeah, what's the verdict? What do we see? What are we going to see at Worlds, and were the changes enough?
In general, in the end, I don't think the changes were enough. I mean, they did a few changes to a couple of the lesser played Guardians like Bacchus and Sobek. Just those are just mana cost reductions to their big abilities, which could cause them to be played in, be played more in a support role. Even though I'm a big fan of Bacchus jungle, and that just makes it easier for Bacchus to play jungle. But yeah, I don't think the changes to Devourer's Gauntlets or to Executioner or Stone of Gaia or the gold changes to the tier 2 of the mage items, I don't think that's going to be enough. I mean, you say that all these changes they're hoping add up to something that causes a meta shift, but I don't see it yet. Though I don't get paid to see it, so maybe there's something I'm missing. But like in general, no, I don't think it's enough. There's got to be a little bit more. I mean, the Devourer's Gauntlet changes at the beginning of the fall is what caused these double hunters to be run. 100 gold is just not enough. There's got to be something else. Maybe it's a physical power reduction or a percentage of life steal reduction, whatever it is. Like, but the Devourer's Gauntlet and the 5 reduced power off of Executioner, that's not going to be enough. Like, there's got to be more.
Yeah, I also don't think it's going to be enough. Like, I think we're not going back to a normal meta where we see one of each class on the map. I think at most what we will see is a couple of mages in the mid lane and a couple of assassins, non-tank assassins in the jungle, but I don't think it's going to be the big LAN meta that is going to establish itself.
I do think we'll see more warriors than guardians in the jungle, but as far as assassins getting back into that jungle role, I don't think they've done enough there. I mean, it's still going to be a pressure thing, and warriors and guardians just generate more pressure than assassins do early. So
yeah,
that's the nature of the class, though.
Unless you're playing Thanatos, of course. Thanatos has great early pressure.
And like we said earlier, Fenrir got a buff. Adapting at Worlds, Fenrir's going to get played.
Probably, yeah. I hope we see Fenrir.
I mentioned it. I didn't mention it during a recording, but I mentioned it after the patch notes that it's funny how they buff Adapting's best god when Adapting wins at Super Regionals and makes it back to Worlds.
Yeah.
Like, they're trying to give energy a 3-peat.
See, why would Hi-Res want to do that, though, when you think about it?
I don't know, maybe build suspension for next year's World when somebody actually knocks them off. I mean, what's a better storyline, knocking off the 2-time defending world champs or knocking off the 3-time defending world champ?
Well, what is a better storyline? Someone defeating the 2-time world champs, or them winning for a 3rd time?
We gotta create drama in Smite. Drama is what draws in the crowds.
Yeah, we need some cheating bans or something. That would be drama. So one pro player is just gonna cheat. gonna have to cheat and be banned for it.
Adapting is going to grow a third arm,
Oh,
and he's going to get medical surgery between now and World, and he's going to have that third arm attached to below his right arm, and he's going to just play with 3 arms.
how would that help you? Like, I guess you could bind
You've
the
got
abilities
2
to the
hands on the
keypad.
keyboard and 1 hand on the mouse, and you're just hitting buttons faster and more buttons often.
See, if you had 3 arms, I feel like you would need a third half of the brain, and it wouldn't be a half of the brain anymore. It would be a third of the brain to control.
You can get a one of those split keyboards where you got half the keyboard on one and half the keyboard on another, and you just play with 2 keyboards.
Yeah, like I don't think the keyboard's the problem. See, I think the problem is having 3 arms and having to control 3 arms would overload your brain.
You don't play a lot of fantasy games, do you?
No.
There you go.
I mean, you still have 2 arms. Come on. And see, there are people in fantasy with bigger brains, like that one guy from the Star Wars prequels. That just has a giant head, but he doesn't have 3 arms.
Are you talking about the Conehead-looking guy?
Yeah, I think so.
You wouldn't know his name. I know his name, so I'm just gonna call him Conehead guy because you wouldn't know.
Oh, I do know his name.
Oh, you do.
Let's
see
do.
What is it?
Ki Adimundi.
There you go.
Ah.
Hey, I didn't know. You never seen Star Wars? I was like, well, I'm not gonna.
No, that was Psycho.
That was Psycho. Psycho told you that.
No, Psycho has never seen Star Wars.
Oh,
that was him, not me.
Oh.
Pretty sure that was him, not me.
Getting my co-host mixed up. Okay.
Yeah. And he's never been on the show for half a year, so.
Hey, we haven't brought up Star Wars on this show in 6 months, so it's like it's confusing which one of you's actually seen it and which one's you've not.
Yeah. Anyway, before we get even more off topic, I think we've sort of talked about everything that we want this week, right?
Yeah. Question though.
Okay.
And this is question. Yeah, we can save this question for next week when we do the World's preview. But I think with the this being a meta show, we can talk about what's the one god that you think could be played next week at Worlds that would surprise you. One surprise god that is going to be played at Worlds.
I mean, if I thought he would be played, it wouldn't surprise me, right? But let me think about this. Mercury. I think Mercury could be played.
And that would be a surprise?
Yeah, it would be. I feel like.
I mean, I feel like...
Why would you play Mercury?
I feel like it would be a surprise if anybody else other than Mask played it.
Yeah.
Think if Adapting picks him up, it's not. It's still more surprising than it would be if Mask plays him, but it's not going to be as. Now, Captain Twig picking him up, that'll be surprising. But
what if we see Mercury ADC?
Snoopy's not at Worlds, is he?
Nope.
There you go. There's your answer.
Well, we have Ataraxia there.
As long as we don't see Giannis ADC from Ataraxia, I think we're good.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the best one I can come up with right now, like honestly. And I'm pretty sure it's just because I played Mercury yesterday, and then I wondered why did I play Mercury yesterday.
So that's the reason why, huh?
Yeah, I think so. He's just on my mind right now, and he's not on anyone else's mind. So.
If that's the case, I played who was it in the mid lane the other day? It wasn't
Zhonghui.
it's one of those mates. No, I only play Shangui in the sport role. You should know that by now. God, she has boobs. Well, she.
That certainly narrows the field.
Of course, she is going to have boobs. She's a she. I think if we see New Ball, it'll be surprising.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, Xenotronics is not playing this year, so the guy who played her last year is not going to be at the Worlds this year. Not really Baskin's thing. But Nanu might play it. I don't. Though it's why would you put him on such a low pressure god? I don't know.
See,
we saw
what you have to do with Nuwa to get pressure early is root people. The root is crazy powerful at level 1.
Yeah. So is getting a second point in your minions and then just pyro leveling your 3, because that explosion on the minions and that damage from the 3 combined really early is that's a lot of power.
Yeah.
But that still requires 4 or 5 levels. But yeah, the Nanu player, Pretty Prime can play anything he wants, and I won't be surprised. I don't know about the international mid laners and mages in general. Not a lot of mages are going to be played. If we see mages in the mid lane again, I think it's going to be like Toss and Giannis and Soul and like Raw. Yeah.
Chronos.
I think if we get too far down the mage rabbit hole, I think then we can see Nuwa. But Nuwa, I think, would be a surprise to me. I think that would be the most surprising god. Not that she's bad right now, but we've seen Anubis like 3 out of the 4 worlds that we've actually had, or 2 out of the 3 worlds we actually had. I don't think he was played last year. Was he played last year?
No, I don't think. The Chinese mid laner that used to play him, Knight, was there last year. And obviously China's not going to be there this year either, so we're not going to see him.
Yeah. Realistically, I think New Wall could be a surprise. That's the only one. And I played her the other day, so it was like I've taken too much time off of Smite. I can't play mid laners anymore.
Yeah.
It was not pretty. It was not pretty whatsoever.
Man, I like Nuwa.
I like her too, especially if they get rid of her towels or her ribbon. Have you noticed in most of her skins, the only thing she's wearing, the only thing that makes her not X-rated, is a tiny piece of cloth that they have wrapped around her breast and her private areas?
Well, that's all you need.
One little strand of cloth, and it goes from a E-rated game to an X-rated game.
Well, see, I'm not sure about American
not X-rated.
law.
Not X-rated, but M-rated. My mistake.
See, I'm not sure about American law, but couldn't you just put like stickers on your nipples and on your private parts, and it would turn things from M-rated to E-rated?
Yeah, pretty much.
So
any kind of nudity gets M-rated. So, and it doesn't get X-rated until there's like actual sexual penetration. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because that was kind of weird to get on topic of.
Yeah, why did you bring it up?
Because I made the X-rated comment a couple seconds earlier, and I was wanting to clear up
Yeah.
some of the rules.
Let's just wrap it up before we see. Now we've went even more off topic. So
We've taken the blue pill, and now we're seeing how far the rabbit hole goes. That is a Matrix reference.
yeah, I know. Follow the white rabbit. I think it was white. Don't know.
Matrix slash. God, what was that fairy tale? I had it a while ago. Damn it.
Wait, Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, Matrix slash Alice in Wonderland reference.
Yeah.
Of course, the Matrix makes an Alice in Wonderland reference, so it's really just an Alice in Wonderland reference. But there's no blue pill, and yeah, so there it is Matrix reference too.
Yeah, if there was a blue pill in Alice in Wonderland, it would be a very different story. But anyway, I think with that, it actually was everything we have to say this week about within this TNS short. So I'm gonna tell you again to like, follow, subscribe, etc. Just do everything you can to support this podcast. And thank you all for watching this video, this podcast. And next week, as Sabo said already, we're going to be doing a Worlds preview, of course. Probably on Tuesday. Yeah,
predictions and preview.
Yeah, they're going to be in there. And yeah, with all that said, good night, good smite.